It's funny. I was getting my hair cut this morning, and I was like rewatching some parts of the movie, and then I realized like I was looking at myself in the mirror, and I was like, I kind of look like a super fan right now, sitting in this chair watching this movie on my phone with this T-shirt. But this lady doesn't know that I'm going to do a podcast like right after it. It's like it's for work.
No. Sadie's is in love with this movie. She
She's
does.
That's not a thing.
She does this once a month.
I know. Watch her bring it on, and then wear the shirt because I just gotta feel it.
It's a ritual. You gotta.
20th anniversary is appropriate,
right? This time.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Welcome to Nutty Bunch presentation of Back to the Feature. We are the collective known as the Cosmic Quartet. We traverse the space-time continuum, watching movies 20 years or older to discuss their relevance then and how they hold up now. I'm your host, English Dave, and helping me be aggressive are my co-hosts, Raven, Rocket Mike, and Mercedes. What's up, guys?
Hey.
I can't do it.
What's up, Dave? I used to cheer, and I was the worst one on the team.
Oh, yeah?
We got a whole system here. I look like I'm the sports commentator, Ravens correspondent on the field, on the side court, and you're the cheerleader that are like, all right, we're going down for the interview now.
And I'm just watching.
Competition was
Dave's in the box.
Yeah, I'm in the box, you know.
Dave's up in the box.
Oh, man.
Dave's watching the instant replays.
Right, and I'm giving you guys the insights.
Yeah, he's the guy that tells us if it was really like out of bounds.
Right.
If the shot made it in time. We call that guy.
I got a different perspective.
And it's good.
If you guys haven't noticed already by Mercedes' awesome t-shirt, we are here to talk about Bring It On. This movie turned 20 this week as we record this. It came out August 22nd, 2000. So this is one of those other movies that makes us feel old.
I know. I was just thinking that. I was 11.
Yeah, I was 10.
It's just like, ooh.
Watching this movie definitely like formulated some opinions that I thought high school was going to be like, and then it was not like that at all.
A lot of movies like that.
No.
Because when you're 11,
was nothing like
like 11 years old, you're definitely like making things up in your head about what you think you're going to, and then you get there and you're like, what? This place sucks. No.
Anyway, this movie, it's funny because this movie came at a time, fun fact, directed by Peyton Reed, who gave us the Ant-Man movie, which I was like, what? I didn't realize the same director.
Watching it, knowing that, and watching it again, I feel like it makes sense.
The pacing and
the same world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. I agreed.
I could see Ant-Man crashing into that school. Mid-cheer. Just coming in big and then getting real small during a cheer. I'm with it.
Right. It's funny because, fun fact, there was a rival cheer movie that came out around that time. And Gabrielle Union was actually trying to get into that movie, didn't get in, and she was like, oh, this sucks. And then now nobody remembers that cheer movie, so great for her.
I remember seeing the trailer for it now that was mentioned.
There was another movie.
Yeah, what?
It's like it was definitely what?
Damn, I forget the Sugar and Spice. Yeah. And it was about
the Powerpuff Girls.
It was a bank robbery with like a robbery movie with cheerleaders or something like that. I don't know, but I just read up on it. This, like I mentioned, Gabrielle Union. This also stars Kirsten Dunst and Eliza Dushku. She was like a big deal, Eliza Dushku.
Right? What happened?
Like she was.
Smoke show.
She was.
She would have been in the Marvel universe. What happened?
She was like childhood crush status for me. I would say.
Right? Because she was like in all the nerd stuff. Like she had, I think she did
Dark
Buffy?
Angel. Yeah,
she did Buffy.
Yeah,
she was in a lot.
She did everything.
I knew her since Interview with the Vampire.
I got lost. We were still in Eliza Dushku.
Yeah, that's what I was.
She was in Interview with the Vampire.
Sorry.
How many vampire things is she in?
I had skipped a whole.
Yeah, I was like, maybe Raven picked up on something in the movie that we missed.
I was thinking like Dunst. So I was just in all different.
Raven just saw D. Raven just saw D and U and just thought,
yeah. What did happen to her?
Raven's doing her grandma thing where she's just like, "Hey, you over there with that name, come here. You know who I'm talking about."
John, Tom, Frank, Bill,
James.
Sorry. This story was written by Jessica Bendiger. She's a white woman whose father kind of worked in the jazz industry, so she was around black musicians a lot. And she says one of the reasons why she did this film was because she, not necessarily to speak on the experience, but in the sense of she was aware that she was always around conversations on appropriation because of being around certain people. So she was always hearing that conversation and realized that a lot of white people didn't have that conversation. They weren't around that conversation. So that was one of the reasons. And on top of that, at the time, she was super into like cheerleading, not as a cheerleader herself, but seeing the stuff. But Mike, do you have some information of how this movie came to be?
Yeah, you actually just started it right there. As you know, Jessica Bendinger.
Yeah, Ben.
Brutalizing that. She was the writer for it because at the time she was working for MTV. She had already directed a few hip hop videos. So she was very aware of the cultural appropriation going on. And she noticed that heavily when she was watching ESPN cheerleading competitions. She said she was just binging them as if, it was on Netflix today, going through all of them, very obsessed. And originally she wanted to do a documentary about it, but that somehow turned more into a script. And after that, it was just trying to find the right cast, because in order for this to go right, you had to have the right people to do it. But she must have gone through, I think it was like 27 different studios, and they all rejected her. It was only on the 28th that they finally landed it right. And it was all within the first 16 pages, including the first two. The first two were vital for anyone to sign on, because that was just painting the picture of how the rest of the film was, not to take it too seriously, that this was more of a comedy that was less on a social commentary, which it does get onto, but it's like, no, we still got to bring it back a little bit. So essentially that was how everything started. Because I was also asking that question, how do you start a cheerleading film? How do you want to do that? So that completely makes sense to me.
Let's go into expectations of this film. I know it's been a long time since I saw it, so I went in with my own expectations, and I know that my assumption was there's going to be another 2000 teen romp film that's not going to age well at all.
Not another teen movie.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought, that's what I went in with. I was like, why did I make us watch this movie? Fine. But
Yeah,
I came out surprised at how well I enjoyed it. It still has flaws, don't get me wrong. It's still a 2000 movie.
Some of the language though.
Right. But I enjoyed it. Mercedes, you're a fan, clear the t-shirts. When was the last time you saw it before now? And what were your expectations watching it again?
Oh my God. The last time I saw this movie, maybe 10 years ago. Yeah, definitely at least 10 years ago. And expectations going in, I knew I was going to enjoy it. And I knew the general premise and plot line, so I felt like I knew what was going on. But then there were some things that I was just like, the references to homosexuality in this movie is very much all right, we are not as progressive as I thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly, I had a lot more warm and fuzzy moments of nostalgia and being a kid and feeling excited. And then when I got to the point when they were about to do their national, the end scene, the championship, I was like, oh, but yeah, the film definitely still holds up for me. And it's one of those iconic classic movies. When you see Spirit Fingers, Spirit Fingers is a thing forever because of this film.
This is Spirit Fingers.
It's Spirit Fingers.
These are gold.
Raven, what was it like for you? I know this is one of your top movies, but it could have been a top movie because for silly reasons. But I feel like you're with us in this movie where you kind of have a bit more respect for it coming back now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a super fan of this movie. Honestly, out of any movie I've ever seen in my life, I've seen this movie about 3 times more than whatever the most watched film is. And there was a mix of reasons, but ultimately it was a favorite. I didn't have many movies to choose from back then. I think I have 4 different films to choose from. I had The Clumps and God, the other 2 were terrible too. I think it was El Dorado and something else. So it was the pickings were slim. But I actually really enjoyed this movie, and I felt like it was a great movie. And I hated cheerleaders when I was that age. I still. It's not that I like cheerleaders. I didn't like the femininity that it represented, but I did like the character of Missy because I felt like if I ever could be a cheerleader, the only type of cheerleader I would be was like her. I felt like I was only there for the athletics and I just want to flip and shit and do cartwheels and, scream and have an adrenaline rush. I really don't care at all about the team winning or the politics, So I love the character of Missy, but I feel like having that character and also the girls from East Compton was kind of what made it more relatable to me. And I like that it kind of even though it was stupid, I felt like of all the teen movies I had watched by that age, it was one of the few films that I felt I could relate to, even though the subject matter was something that I couldn't, if that makes sense.
It's funny you say that because it's like, having watched the Q&A with the actors and the creative talent, what you just said was like the point of why they made the movie, right? It was like a lot of people look at cheerleading as this one thing, and then part of the narrative was showing, well, cheerleading is more than that. Fuck the team. We didn't even care about the team.
No.
When we cheer for the team, that's just practice.
Yeah.
And I like that aspect of the movie. It was aware of how cheerleading is perceived by the public, right? And part of that was showing a different side of it. Yeah, I did appreciate that aspect as well, because all of us are like that. Even aspects of guys on the team, right? I like the fact that not every guy on the team was gay. Because
I love that.
It's playing.
I love that only one guy on the team is gay, from what we can tell.
Or at least they didn't have to go out and spell it. This guy's straight, this guy's gay, and then the rest is like, you figure it. It's not your business, but unless they want to tell you.
Right, exactly. And I like that because, again, there's this perception that only gay guys are doing shit. And this straight guy, he's having a good time with the ladies. he's
the biggest dog on campus and nobody even knows.
Yeah.
He's getting like premium ass, and the rest of you are just like,
When the other football guys are like, oh, maybe I should join the team. When he sees the guys stretch.
Yeah.
That's the best part, because it's like, that's why you join.
Right.
That's why.
That is why. Mike, your expectations. When was the last time you saw this film? And how did you
feel? Yeah, it had to be over 10 years ago. I've always ever seen it on TV, never on demand or VHS. No. So when I finally saw the full unedited version, I'm like, how have I been so blind from all this? The amount of languages, choices that they use in this was wide-eyed, for me. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a 2000s movie. So when that came into play, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna, like most movies that we watch that are over 20 years old, just ride this out. And it goes back onto the the subject of talking about their sexuality and, of course, race appropriation, cultural appropriation, should I say. That all of this, I completely went over my head the first time I saw it, maybe 18 years ago.
I think it's almost like a curse of its genre, especially, everyone's going to lump it in with the American Pies and all that kind of stuff. And, you kind of, the nuance goes right over your head. And I think, like I said earlier in the podcast, that's the reason this movie stands the test of time, where other aspects of the film kind of feel dated. The message doesn't feel dated in both good and bad ways, right? It's bad that
I also feel like this film was like a different kind of teen film. I feel like it almost started, the trend of self-aware teen films, where like this film, even though it's a teen film, I feel like it fully embraced all of the ridiculous parts of it, and it was fully self-aware, which is why every other film after it under the same title, Bring It On, failed, because they took themselves too seriously.
I want to speak on the themes that this movie deals with. It deals with a lot of heavy themes, even though it's in a subtle way and it doesn't go super deep into them. It does bring it up, and we've mentioned that. I want to start up with the themes of sexuality that you brought up, Sadie, because it does use certain language that's like, whoa. You said it wasn't as progressive as it was, but I also think in many ways it was. It's kind of like this weird line it kind of goes on where it's super progressive, because just the way it deals with the main gay guy, right? It's never in a negative light.
No, it's not in a negative way at all.
Like, he's almost like the guy. Like, he's a cool guy. He's
a part of, but the way that we refer to the guy,
whether it's right or wrong, what I like is that this film brings up the conversation, right?
Yes.
On that discussion.
I feel like I didn't mind as much because I feel like it just spoke to the ignorance of the time.
I didn't mind either, but yes.
Whereas like other films, I watch it and I'll like cringe bad, like like Reservoir Dogs. What the like you did not have to say
there's no reason to bring it up.
Times. It's just unnecessary. Like, it wasn't necessary then, not necessary now. But whereas this, I was like, it's like 2-3 lines. It was said by the ignorant football player the first time we heard it. Because he's dumb, and that was kind of,
and we know
to show
it was written well in context.
In that one line, this guy is an idiot. And it's like, okay. And that's and it also showed how smart the what was his name? I don't want to call him the gay guy, but that was kind of the point. His response is, we don't have to get all malignant. They don't even know what that means. Malignant this tool.
Yeah,
It's like, but that's why I love the film, because it's like you have those moments of being like, okay, this is that moment of really, really stupid, 90s corny lines, and then it's responded to with, we don't have to get all malignant, so I love it. I feel like it's a good balance.
I mentioned off podcast, and I truly believe that this movie was made today, Missy and her brother would have been one character, and they would have kind of looked at a gay relationship between her and Torrance. I think, because I just want to think those two characters could have been one character in certain elements to kind of bring that narrative with her. And I think a lot of changes would have happened if it was made today. I think some of those words definitely wouldn't have been used, even if it was in a positive light. They wouldn't have used it.
Yeah, no.
We wouldn't say it now at all.
Definitely not.
It'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I really like that they had the moment. I think the guy, his name is, I think it's Les.
Les, yeah. I was going to say I found his name.
I liked his moment with, it was just a small moment with the other guy from the other team when he kind of talks like, hey, good game. Like almost like they're flirting with each other. It was like a subtle moment, but I kind of liked it. It was something that worked for me to kind of add character to him. Let's talk about the racial and financial inequality of this movie. That's the subtext of this film. When it comes
even
down
just
to
the external shots of the high schools,
right? So,
you automatically know, like, okay,
Hey.
all right, this is
We're
what
in
we're
the
getting
inner
into.
city.
Yeah, and it's messed up, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
My school was more like East Compton, but one town over was like, Rancho Carne or whatever. So it was kind of like, for me, that's very much
campus.
real.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, for me, that was very much a reality. And I was appreciative of the fact that was something that was brought up in the show, that like, it wasn't just like, okay, these kids can't get there and you don't go, fully into it. I felt like without getting too deep, it was still just like, okay, just like compare these two, there's something wrong here. But we're going to focus on cheerleading. We're going to focus on cheerleading, but we're just saying, that's effed up, right?
Right,
like,
right.
Just the bleachers, the size of the gym itself, the uniform, certain things like that. I just felt like it was a nice way of like giving backdrop to the characters in their backgrounds, because we didn't get much screen time with them. This is probably still one of my only like, but you can only make the movie but so long. But I would have loved to see more of the Clovers.
It's funny you say that, because that was my initial critique, and then I watched this Q&A with the writer, and they bring that up and said one of the reasons why is because they didn't want to write, as a white woman, write too much for black people and talk about the black experience, because the experience was about her as a white person being made aware. Torrance is, she plays ignorance. Oh, I didn't know. Bitch, you chose not to know. I love the line
exactly
when Isis says to her, you think that bitch would be able to come up with those lines by herself? Like, you think about
it, and it is pretty funny, because you're like,
you accept it.
Even the dance moves,
right?
When you finally see the choreography done right, you're like, yeah, they definitely.
You chose not to ask.
That's the best scene. The
like
mirror
that's
scene
how
from...
it's supposed to be done.
It's like it was so obvious, but you decided not to look. If you just looked, you would have seen it. It wasn't even subtle. Yeah, that's what I like about that. It's like, no, you can't plead ignorance. That doesn't count, because you enjoyed the benefits of it. You can't turn around now and say, one of the things I liked about this movie though is, if you don't know, when Missy comes and it's like, I'm going to show you some shit, come with me, the movie almost switches and turns around and you're like, oh.
That's what I love though. The movie is so real after that, because you go from being like, this stupid blah, 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 like, ooh, scandal.
I'll ask you,
oh,
Mike,
snap.
I'll ask you, Mike, I don't know if you remember that moment, but how did you feel about that whole moment of realization of like, oh shit, this is what the movie's about?
I knew it was going to be a better movie in general. I'm like, okay, this has something to say. This isn't just, we got to work hard. We got to work hard to win again.
Be original.
Yeah. Because I'm like, yeah, it was funny. It was they were making fun of themselves in the beginning. And, for anyone lesser, they could have went with Jet and like, oh, we're just going to joke about ourselves being cheerleaders, But taking this, extra step, and it was definitely groundbreaking in that it was exposing this side, was a much more important film than we give it, especially because it does have the cover of just a teen movie. And you don't get that from the other teen movies. Like, literally look at Not Another Teen Movie and all the ones that they made fun of, and they just took those little bits that were not, easier to make fun of, rather than this one. It's like, no, we're giving you a little education on this, because I was definitely blind to it when I was younger, just the same way as Kirsten Dunst, as Torrance was in this. Like, I like that whole ripping up the check. I didn't understand it at the time. I'm like, you just take the money. We're saying take the money. But this one really, really is like, okay, now we're definitely at a better time where we can see the other side better, and telling like what it is as a white person is actively doing without even realizing it.
I think it speaks to our time now, right? People to understand the context of, you know, when like, just like, it's no different to when someone says Black Lives Matter and you get someone else who's like, oh, what do you mean Black Lives Matter? White lives matter too, assuming that we're saying Black Lives Matter more. And it's like, no, all we're fighting for is equal chance. And that's what this reminds me of. We don't want your handouts. Don't give us extra money. We don't, we're not asking for a handout. Give us a level playing field and give us a fair playing field for us to prove ourselves. That's all we're saying. And I think this movie does a good job of that through Gabrielle Union's character. And there's some people who don't read it and they read the movie as her being a villain, which is the same way as when people see the protesters and like, protesters, what are they doing? It's like, no, they're angry. It's for like you watched
a whole different film.
Yeah,
it's angry for a reason.
What?
Let's sit down. We'll watch it together.
They're the underdogs, man. There's no villains here.
Why is she so angry? Because for years you've been stealing their shit. And they couldn't do anything about it because you think about the idea that they knew that Big Red was coming every year, but they couldn't do anything about it. Think of what that feels like, to your shit taken away, used and abused, and someone else takes it as the best and right in front of you.
Yeah, and also finding out that your routines have the potential to be winners, because you find out your routines win too. It's one thing to know that your routines are being stolen, but these people become champions.
Whole time.
All right, before we go into some of our fan comments, we had a whole lot of fans give us their thoughts. I wanted to ask you guys, if you haven't spoken about it yet, I'll start with you, Sadie's. What is your favorite moment or character or unsung character of the movie? Pick one or both.
My favorite unsung characters of the movie, I have two, and now I got to get her exact. Oh, Darcy, the one who they keep making fun of with the big ass.
I'm like, Darcy.
I'm like,
she's kind of like perfect. So what are we talking about?
Yeah, really.
When the choreographer's like giving shit about the butt, I was like, no, don't change that.
That is perfect.
I know, that's also
compliments to your ass.
Clearly, we are an ass generation now.
Right.
And then the other characters, I guess it was, what was the girl group that was in Clovers?
Black.
Oh.
Yeah, Black. So yeah, the girl group were, because I thought they were so funny. Oh, and then Odd Tryouts were awesome. Tryouts were hilarious to me, the tryout scene.
The tryouts were funny. Raven, favorite moments or unsung heroes, or both?
My favorite moments were every single cheer. I can't lie. Which is like, it's one of those things I didn't expect going in when I was a kid. But like coming out, I was doing all those cheers all of the time. I still know every word and every move. I can't lie. I'm not going to do it, but it's been hard. Also, I think my hero and my favorite ultimately is always going to be Missy. I tried to find a new one this time around. I'm like, no, that's my girl. I love her. Cause yeah, she's like, granted, other than, the members of Black and obviously Gabrielle Union, which we just didn't get to see enough of. I think anytime Missy is just given general knowledge and just changing Torrance's whole life, I appreciate it. I think one of the best moments when rewatching it again, I was dying, was like the reaction, just her with the interview with the news after the Clovers had done their routine. Yeah. And when they were about to do their choreographed routine for Sparky Pilastri, she was already freaking out. She was already nervous. And then in the background, you hear the same music. You hear that, prepare for total domination. Yo, her face. Oh, it's so great. And then and then the cheer itself and the reaction of the crowd, and then them getting up there directly after and doing the same routine, but just more pepped up. And then the two boyfriends cheering. It's just like, I felt like that whole 5-10 minutes is just like one of my favorite parts. It's just nonstop. I just die laughing throughout, and just like the look on Big Red's face. It's just great.
Mike, favorite moments, unsung heroes?
I gotta pick a new favorite moment because I was literally gonna say that one. That was like when they eat it. They totally have everything reversed on them. Like, this is what it's like. They have something copied off of you.
Right.
even though you think you're the first ones to do it. He sold it to like 8 other teams down in California,
One asshole.
and they're just left doing this dead like robot. That was
In the
the
crowd.
No, my favorite
I was
dance move was
dead
this
at
one
that
where
point.
they're like,
No, when they're gyrating.
oh yeah, just the constant.
Oh,
pumping
it's
here.
so bad.
Oh, the spirit fingers. That was a move forever.
Classic.
For like the next
Oh.
decade.
I remember
It
going,
still is.
I
I feel
remember
people
being
still
in
do
high
spirit
school,
fingers.
like in junior year, big like spirit fingers. That's how iconic like that line was. Because this movie was already old, and we were still quoting that line.
Yeah.
Every theater audition I had, I was like, when do we add these in? Is this
Yeah.
it? We're not gold. This
Yo,
is gold.
that was also the other thing. Being
Yeah.
in high school and realizing that spirit fingers were an actual choreographed dance move, and you were like, oh,
Yeah.
I actually have to do this now.
Comes from somewhere.
Yeah. And lastly, all the quotes. This movie is so quotable. I've been quoting this movie my whole life.
Fun
Just
fact.
something as simple as I really tell people on the street, do your thing, ISIS. Like, that's really just part of my regular, dialogue. Just little things like she put the horror in horrifying. Like just, a lot of great wordplay.
One of my favorite moments, and it's more because of how it's shot, was when Torrance becomes the leader in the first practice they're doing out in the park, and then I think it's Carver or something falls down, and they're looking at her, and the way the camera switches to her being on the stretcher, that
It's
was
so
brilliant.
good.
It's so comedic and so well done. I'm okay. We'll be good.
Will not
it's
be good, girl.
As
You
her
will not
first
be
day
good.
as captain, she breaks someone. It's so great.
Which I thought was great.
There's so
I'm
many
gonna-
great moments. In
I'm going to
this.
quickly read out some fan thoughts. The first one comes to us by, I don't know, some unknown person known as Kate Lee Knows. I don't know if you might have heard of her. One of you might have heard of her.
I don't trust this
Kate Lee?
person.
She says, Gabrielle Union never aged and I still have a crush on Jesse Bradford. No.
Did-
Someone should be
did when
worried.
this movie
Can't
was out.
imagine why. She
I
has
had
a
a little
type.
crush on Cliff.
Accurate.
He does.
Accurate. Everybody had a crush on Cliff with those. He was so like the California guy that wants to be in New York with his like Brooklyn T-shirts and the
Yeah.
bands. And the
Hipster. He was like a
music.
hipster before a hipster was a
Hipster-
thing.
Yeah, before hipsters knew what they were. Yeah.
And his
We have another
amazing
one.
like shadow, beard shadow. And he's in high school. It's great.
We have another response from someone else.
Narc.
So we have another response for someone else here. Deep State Yoda says, Raven made me watch this blackout drunk and I have no recollection other than UGLY. So Raven,
Oh man, this is true. I remember that day actually.
right.
He was joining with me in the cheers.
D Nesta says, I loved it at the time, still would watch it if it happened to be on. I think I'd keep it on now.
Yeah, I would. It would be background.
I will never not watch this movie. I don't care.
It's not Bring It On. It's called Keep It On.
Mr. Jonathan Leone says, it's fucking iconic, one of my faves. They should have left it alone with all those sequels. Seriously though. It was like
Amen.
5
Yeah,
sequels.
bring it on, all or nothing. Bring it on
Amen.
again. Bring
That was
it
the
on
biggest
again.
shocker.
Leave
Again.
it alone.
Was it 5 movies?
Right,
Bring it
right.
on.
Like,
put
Or
it back.
When you make
and
a
then
movie
bring
about
it back.
appropriation, you appropriated the movie about appropriation. Leave it alone. That make no sense.
What else? Alex the Grief says, obsessed, a classic that brings back so many memories and gets me dancing and wanting to cheer. Did it make you guys want to cheer afterwards?
I did cheer.
It did. I was doing it in my
I legit got up and danced on my couch during Torrance's dance scene. I did it.
And Rosalind Cabral says, it was the reason why I was a cheerleader every Halloween. Look at that. So it's influencing
commitment with a costume.
people, right?
I like it.
Oh, one more.
Hey, stick to it.
I have one
It's
more.
easy that way.
Onyinye says, amazing. I love the commentary of unification through dance. True.
Good.
Completely agree.
Grateful. I like that one.
I do like that one. So thank you guys for your responses. Thank you guys for your responses. Every week we do review something, so keep checking our social media for you guys to give us your views on the things we watch, and we'll read them out here on the podcast. Hey there, nerdies. English Dave here. That's the end of part 1 of our 2-part podcast. If you guys haven't seen the film or revisited in a while, go back, check it out, and then come back and check out part 2, which will be out in a few days as we record this, or depending on when you listen, it'll be available now. As always, guys, thanks for listening and keep it nerdy. Peace.